How's everybody doing? Welcome. We get the camera set up properly here. Okay. We are potentially good to go. There we go. Maybe. Fuck. It always changes, no matter what I do. So, let's talk about Deliverance. That's what we're working on today. What's up, Vig? Welcome. All right, so we've did a lot of work yesterday, on and off stream, mostly off stream. My last stream was not very long, but I was getting work done beforehand. I was just busy listening to some podcasts and chilling. And I talked after the fact to you, actually, Veek. I did a little log where I talked about like some changes I wanted to do, like extending this area up into the left a little bit, which would help with a few different things. It would, for one, help cut down a little bit on like the sort of canyon valley space that you have on the low ground, where there's not really a whole lot that's particularly interesting. Like, I'm still not 100% sure what I want to do with a lot of the low ground areas. Do I want to just convert them into high ground via raised jungle or more dirt? Like, a lot of that stuff is still yet to be determined. I do think that having a couple of like high rises or whatever using raised jungle is nice for like, oh, here's a ramp that you can use for defensive purposes, especially since we have those height changes now. That really matters a lot more. So I kind of like the idea of doing that even more than I already was doing, that sort of thing. If you remember back to Stormborn, there was all sorts of stuff like that in Stormborn where we would have these raised jungle features. And I really liked what that did for elevating your position in the middle of fights and adding a little bit of tactical depth and basically just adding some element of design to an area that didn't have it previously. So adding interactivity and interplay between certain elements. The problem thus far with this map is that I almost feel like the right term for it is uninspired. It's that, like, because it's still in that entry level phase of I'm first working with it, I don't have a perfect idea of where the map flow is going to go. I don't have a perfect idea of how to space everything out and make it so that it's appropriate or whatever. And so it's definitely a tough ask. But I do think it's more than feasible to, continue tweaking stuff and adding some things here and there and all that. So it definitely makes me wish for a world where we had more than 2 or 3 height levels, I guess. I was thinking of 2 on top of the basic one. I really wish we had like an infinite number and we could just scale it up. I wish that we could apply like half bonuses so that you could have like these hills, like these raised jungle pieces that would apply that sort of thing. But the Protoss on the east is farther away from Zerg than the main player is. So what do you mean? You mean like they're not as clumped together as these two? I mean, that's by design, but maybe you meant the Protoss on the west? Isn't east right? I'm on the east coast of the United States, so I'm pretty sure east is right. Right-hand side. And I guess from a Western-centric point of view, like when they say Eastern countries, that's usually Asian stuff that's on the right of the map. Tauros is orange, Salamir is the golden color, and Deimos is green. So maybe that works out. Yeah, so that is a worry that I have, is like maybe I should move Arak up onto the high ground or into like way further up or something. I want to keep Arak close to Tauros. Arak is by proximity the closest Zerg in the first mission too, and in this case it's like elevating that or pushing that even further. But I could easily see this base being more of something that's like fought over, especially if I restructure the area. The current issue with this really hilarious mineral layout is, I mean, beyond the fact that it's hilarious, it's also the fact that you don't have a whole lot of opportunity to mine this base unless you also control RX main. So that's definitely a a flaw in that area. I was talking about this yesterday on stream. I've historically made a lot of bases where you could mine from multiple bases at the same time, but like it would have to be your ally and you, or just you, mining from multiple bases in an area because the bases were so closely packed together. So, what that translates to is like, in a world where you want to harvest this base on the raised jungle, you also need to have control over Tauros's base because of the proximity, and you would also benefit from having control over a Salamir's base and a Salamir's natural. It's kind of like that. But imagine if all of the expansions were like that, where like they were all in pairs or triplets or something, and you pretty much always had this proximity thing. I don't think that that's great, even though it obviously reinforces the idea of a team-based thing. You want to have room for independent, like pushing out and contesting bases, rather than I have this base, so I can stop you from ever mining this base. You know what I mean? So it's a bit more complicated than I make it sound, but I feel like that dynamic doesn't really help in the grand scheme of things. This isn't so much Mutas doesn't inspired. I actually think that this was like an interesting approach where you mine from like ramps and stuff. I've always liked the idea of mining up ramps. I even did this in Stormborn. I think it'll be a lot more reasonable with the worker change. Even still, I'll probably need to shape this area a little bit differently and see what else I can come up with as far as those kinds of things are concerned. So, on the technical side of things, Iquar is messaging me now that he may have correctly implemented. He has a working implementation thus far. He's not finished testing it yet of the fake unit ID extender, which is going to allow us to set sounds for entries past 106 and to set to have a 2-byte flingy listing so that we can have more flingy entries. It definitely favors Zerg because of the fact that you can have multiple hatcheries, right? I mean, it also is useful for Terrans since they can build treasuries. Protoss is pretty much the only one that doesn't have the opportunity to do that. It's too bad that we might... It seems likely that we won't implement advanced workers, which is kind of unfortunate. But if we end up doing that, then that could also play a part here because the Protoss advanced worker will definitely be the fastest in terms of movement speed. The Terran advanced worker is going to mine. I think probably they might return more minerals, mule style, or they might just mine faster than SCVs, but still have to have the same relatively similar movement speed, maybe slightly faster than regular SCVs, but not nearly as fast as the Protoss one. I'm not sure about the Zerg advanced worker, how they would interact with mining in that way. I was thinking that maybe the Protoss one would also have a benefit where they wouldn't actually interrupt the resource regeneration, but I think that could also be the Zerg one. Like Zergs mine in a more organic way or something. Like my lore framing was that Protoss mine more elegantly because they have more advanced technology that's more about precision. Terrans are more about just smashing this shit and returning it. Iquar even has like an interesting upgrade or mining. I don't even think it's an upgrade. I think it's an ability for one of the miners where it drains more resources than a normal draining. So it drains more resources than it returns, but you still return more resources. So the idea is that you're paying in the long run, but in the short term, you're getting money. And I think that ends up being pretty cool. Would the resource one be impactful? I'm not sure. I think we would probably we still have to modify the code for the resource boost that Iroleths and so on provide. quarries, penance, etc. We have to modify those boosts so that they work for a bit of a different way. In the current implementation, I think they just force they don't take into account whether or not the mineral regeneration rate should be reduced by mining, I think. Like, I think if you have a mineral field, if you have two mineral fields that are both in need of regenerating resources, they don't have the max, and those mineral fields are being, like, one of them is being mined from and the other is not. In a perfect world, it doesn't matter if you have a quarry or an irolith nearby. The one that's being mined from should regenerate slower, even if it's regenerating faster than normal because of a boost. But I think the boost overrides it and regenerates it as fast as one that's not being mined currently. I'm not sure about that, but I think the other thing about the advanced Zerg worker is probably that they'll get it faster and cheaper than the other races. At the very least, it'll definitely be cheaper by a considerable margin. Like, maybe it only costs 50 gas or 25 gas or something, whereas the other ones are going to cost like 75 or 175 or 100, whatever the case may be. So, and Zerg can get so many more of them. In addition to them being cheaper, they can build them faster than the others can because all they require are drones. And for drones, all you require is larvae. That's the thing that Zerg always has an advantage over the other races in, is that they are not gated by the same production mechanisms as everybody else. Whereas, like I said earlier, I'm probably going to allow you to produce advanced workers from factories and robotics facilities or something like that. But, or maybe it'll be like robotics facility for Protoss and maybe command centers will be necessary for the Terran one. I'm not really decided on that yet. But the idea is that no matter really what you have, you're going to be gated in your production of these things. So it actually makes more sense to me that the Protoss and Terran ones are more immediately impactful, whereas the Zerg ones you can mass produce. So well, this is all theoretical. I don't think we'll be able to implement it in Deliverance. But I think that they would just have a, what's it called? They would have the opportunity to generate a pylon power field around themselves, which would allow them to warp in structures without pylons nearby. It's just that they also have to be in the area to, provide power. So the idea is that you start the pylon at the same time as you start other things, in most cases, I think. But it should be cool. I'm trying to figure out why I don't actually have ownership over this. I mean, it says I do. Oh, maybe I have to tick this? I don't know. I don't know how all this Windows security shit works. Seems pretty goofy to me. Yeah, I. Yeah, that's what we call a mess. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't actually complete it the first time, or any of the times. Like a destroyed version. I might be able to come up with something later. I want to do so much stuff, but I have to focus on like getting the layouts of these maps done, generating all this content, all that stuff. Veek, earlier you were asking for something to like ways that you could help. I know it's not your favorite thing in the world, but would you be interested in continuing to work on the sound effects data thing? Like I know you were talking earlier, you didn't want to do tool dev anymore for the time being, but unfortunately, I'm not really sure what else I can throw at you. If you wanted to start updating the AI, like trying to generate preprocessor blocks or whatever for the AI, that could also be something pretty useful. Well, what do you mean by swamp water on same level as? You mean like without the actual divots and as doodads or something? I could probably convince DF to get some of those done at some point. Hmm. I wonder if it's not worth it to change this up. All right. I mean, the main problem is that we don't really have the same element of... I guess I could do this. If I just move this over here. Okay. I'll mess around with that at some point, I'm sure. Anyway, the small pools idea is not a bad one, I don't think. I'm still not able to actually do what I need to do here. I own the folder. But I still need to grant admin permissions every time I want to do something in here. I don't know why that happens. There's absolutely nothing online about this error that I can find, so guess my web search skills are not sufficient, at least as of right now. I wonder if it wouldn't be worth pulling this thing out too and making this a more defined aspect of the overall area. Like, if we pull this little high-rise hill out and seal this off so that you can only access it by going all the way around or going up, I think it adds another element to the base. I think I would either move or add, like move this one or add a new one over here, though, for the north-facing ramp, but I would probably keep this as the sole entry point into the area. There's a much more straightforward path if you are the Protoss. It's just that this stops you from being able to easily reinforce from the left, which is kind of the intention, and also solidifies this as a more reasonable like pathway that you and your allies and your enemies can use. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the how people end up reacting to the Protoss. I mean the Terran element. in this map. Shit, homie. I ain't got nothing. I think I'm missing this one in there. Yeah, I can't find the other version of that. That's pretty bad. I'll end up making a tile that will help me seal that off later, if I haven't already made one. I mean, I think I have. I just need to cliff stack it. Yeah. I wouldn't personally go looking for Warcraft 1 AI, but you know. Okay, actually, I think I found what I need here. The only problem is that these are set up in a particular kind of way. Unfortunately. Okay, I think I can make that work. Yeah, always impresses me when people somehow fail to see how brain dead and malicious StarCraft 2's AI is. Malicious in terms of, well, just how it interacts with you. All right. That's okay. I might end up reshaping part of it. But I do think that that is better than what we had before. So this is a positive tweak. Now the question still remains what to do with this guy. I thought C was like the whole point of the... I mean... Not the whole point of C, but isn't that like a... Isn't that like saying it's a car but without an engine? Or something to that effect? Like, I feel like it's a little crazy to omit stuff like that, you know? What do I feel like tweaking right now? Because I could either try to fill in the bottom right-hand area or more of this area. Try to make it a bit more... Make it a bit more interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the current bottom left, but I mean, I'm not really sure how I would change it up is the problem. Well, I know just because you can do something without those tools doesn't mean it's not a big part of what makes the language like usable. I mean, people can make RPGs and Broodware. I can't even say that with a straight face. Doesn't mean it's a good choice. Not really sure if this is an improvement. I kind of liked the rising and falling before. Yeah, I might just revert that. I was trying to play around with the idea just to see what I could do there, but... So maybe what I'll do instead is dip that and make this a little bit more... A little bit tighter, but also a little bit more varied, and that'll help the geometry of it feel a little bit less goofy. That's kind of a boring map border, but... I don't know, I'll keep tweaking that later. The real challenge is going to be figuring out what's going to happen with Iraq. I've definitely identified the idea that I'm not satisfied with where he's at right now, and I want to change that up. But I don't know if I can make anything worthwhile change-wise. Oh, this is apparently not aligned. That is going to make my life a little bit more annoying. Not by much, but still. Excuse me. I actually don't know how I'm going to do this one. That's the plan. Unfortunately, they would probably have something more functional. If you can believe that. I would like to see StarCraft 2 crash because of a panic. That would be hilarious. Just from one programmer to another. I'm not really sure what's going on over here, though. Oh, I think I know what I have to do if I want to do that. I need, like... this. And then that. I can do this instead. And then I can do this. I don't like those really thin cliffs being super, well, being this long, like too long. Two tiles or two cliff tiles long, because it very much feels like a conceit. Like, I wanted it to be this way, and so it is. As opposed to something more organic. So I think I'll just keep tweaking this for now. I mean, even that still feels a little much, but that's for different reasons, though. That's because I think I actually made a cliff tile that could work for that at some point. I'll check it later. But I'm pretty sure I did something like that. If not, I'll do it at some other point. What do you think about the rust? Will I have full tech access for map 1? Yup. This mineral area looks strange. Yup. It's definitely strange. But no lava will come out of the ground to gimmick all of your SCVs to death, so you don't have to worry about that. I suppose before I actually start editing this tile, I should double check. I think the thing that I'm thinking of is not quite real. Yeah, it was this, but it's at a different axis. This tile doesn't exist in the normal game, but what I need is it to be like up more, so. Cool. I have not actually done any graphics work outside. This is the first graphics work I've done in a long time since I was converting structures. So. Oh wait, jungle. No, jungle. There we go. Cliff. Oh wait. We'll just lard mirror that, unfortunately. And then I need it to be 512. Okay. No, I compiled the plugins and added them to the exe, but I have not tested it. I guess this could be a good opportunity to re-enable the config stuff for the sound effects. And we can test to see if overlords still work. Oh, looks like overlords still work. Okay, well, we have the right sound, but there's no select. You guys can't hear the sounds anyway, but there's no selection sounds for buildings. So something got fucked up there. Cool. All right. Well, we have working sounds for the Vorvaling and the Basilisk, but we do not have what lines or unit responses for buildings anymore. So I'm not shipping that, but at least we've fixed that problem. Good job. Listen, dude. Lard code. Bro. Hey, this is the perfect amount of groups that were added by accident due to a bug. Beautiful. Oh, wait. Generate height from walkability. That did not work as intended. Oh, I think I have to be in group multi-selection mode for that one. Epic. I did not mention that, but I've been given a lot of Fagudo screenshots about it. That's where that comes from. Fagudo is in the server that they've set up, I guess. It's basically some people who were some people who are responsible for adding in or for some mod somewhere. Oh wait, I should not have deleted iScript bin, I don't think. Alright, hold on. I gotta discard my changes. But yeah, they made some melee mod or something in StarCraft 2, and then they made... Well, now you know. I wonder what's still eating up so much file space in here. Guess I can get rid of all of these. Hey! I don't think that's a bad thing. Do you, like, what even runs if you... Oh. I guess it means that there's a non-negotiable change in AI script performance. But I don't think that's a bad thing either, so... I mean, I guess if you wanted to go in and disable all A's-related improvements, if a certain config option isn't set, then you could get somewhere with that. Like, there could be a config option called disable A's, and no A's code would run then. besides the extender stuff. Like no AI script related code would run. Maybe that could work. Then like the AI script changes would only be there if somebody wanted to enable them. But I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal. Like it just fixes bugs related to AI. It's not a bad thing. So I don't know. Those are my 2 cents anyway. Okay, so done some pretty good work so far on this map. I especially like the changes over here that I ended up making. This looks better than what it was done before. I guess we did a minor improvement over there. I'm trying to... I thought we did something else too, but I guess not, huh? So now the question is whether or not we jump forward with... Yeah, as much as it seems like I'm just pushing the Arak changes, like putting them off for later or something, I do think it would be better for me to get more work done on this area so that I could get a better idea of what the rest of the map flow could look like if I retained the existing layout. And that would give me more of an understanding of, like, I know I want to change our starting location, and I know that that's going to be some work. So, like, I don't yet know how I want to change his starting location, so I've got to be cognizant of that. Like, it might involve combining these two into one giant upraised plateau and having Githroki be where he is while Arak is also, like, up here. Or having Arak still on the medium ground instead of the high ground, but somewhere else. Still in roughly the same area, but... Honestly, I wonder if it wouldn't be prudent to pull this area apart and make it so that it's like a tight choke, but you can get in here. I wonder if it wouldn't be interesting to go that approach so that you could mine from the Protoss side if you wanted to. I could even add more minerals. I think that might work, honestly. That's an idea. So I can explore that, and then maybe Eric doesn't have to go after all. Maybe he can move slightly with when I end up moving the terrain slightly, but maybe he doesn't have to dramatically change his position. I allow this base to be contested and mined from by both parties, and it's a nice, interesting area for you to do battle around. But I do think I should finalize where I'm going to put the Emojins. I should get Githroki's area started to be set up. Not directly related to Arak or anything, but I should probably finish this bottom right area, try to flesh it out a little bit. I basically just need to flesh the rest of the map out more before I can make, like, decisive changes about some of this other stuff. Like, the only reason I was able to make the determination that I should do what I did to this base above Deimos is because I set up Gorn's area, and I had already set up the Terran, like the starting players area, so Tauros and Asalamir, and a little bit of Arak, and obviously Deimos himself. I set up his area as well. It's like I had the pieces starting to come together, and I knew where people were going to be going. So to me, it made like it helped build an argument for what I was doing, and it's still not necessarily the final incarnation. Obviously, I'm going to be adding some decor, but more functionally speaking, I'm probably going to be like extending this cliff up to the north a little bit more. Um, there's going to be tons of things that I continue to tweak, but I feel like we're stronger now, and the only way that we could get stronger by doing that layout change was because I already had the other elements there somewhat defined. So I'll be able to definitely work this into something more interesting once these areas get better defined. So for now, I shall BRB. So BRB. All right, I have returned. I'm back. Hi. Well, you were talking about maps. I would say check out. Uh, oh, that's pretty interesting. Um,
We are investigating.
does look like there's some missing or too low priorities for some stuff. All right. Anyway, that was a nice little detour, but we're back now. I think I will just tackle this area in the current scheme of things. I think it makes the most sense. At some point, I'm going to have to terraform this entire map, unfortunately. Because of how SCM Draft handles this sort of thing. Taking a quick detour to try to fix a bug that was just reported on the Discord server. See if we get anywhere with that. Destroyed ammo. Oh, I get it. Yeah, he just turns it on when there's literally nothing around. But I don't get any debug messages anymore. Well, I mean, I don't know if I was gonna get debug messages this way anyway, but Well, it's always been bugged. This is always what's happened. The shaman just sits here and occasionally turns it off and otherwise turns it back on. It's like it somehow thinks that every single one of these... I mean, I guess I can get rid of the energy check now, since there is no energy anymore. But yeah, it certainly seems to be goofy. I don't know what that means. Aren't we talking about that? Yeah, he just turns it on all the time. I mean, his thing is, if its own health is greater than 25, and he's got at least... Oh, yeah, I'm still getting the bug, the debug message, but I'm still... So basically, what's happening? Wow, it's really going now. I think it's if this is true or something. I don't know. That's really weird. Like the... Like, these are duplicates just because one of them is for allies and one of them is for own units. Really, I guess it should be like group men. And it should be unit flags organic. I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible, but that's what it should be. Instead of hard coding for unit IDs. It's just really weird that they just turn on out of nowhere. Some very bizarre stuff. I wish I could tether resource areas together regardless of height. That would be pretty banging. What's going on, Alexander? Always a treat, Windows. Oh man. Pranked yet again. It's always happening. SMH. Beautiful. Mwah. I'll probably have to throw some rocky ground around, but for now I'll mark that stuff with some ruins where I'll place them. Because as safe as the space tends to be, judging by what we've got here, I think we should cut down a little bit on the build space that will be available. I'll sprinkle in a bunch over there as well, I think. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think this works out. This looks good to me. Space-wise, I'll probably shrink some of the effective space over here by adding some more borders. Really, I just need stacked raised jungle so that I can do that in a more reasonable way. But that's for later on, I think. Oops. Somebody's honking their horns, dude. Okay. So, now that we've done a little bit more tweaking, we've opened this area up the way that I said I was going to. And I think we're getting into that area where it's, unlikely we'll be able to do a crazy amount of additional work. Wait, what? Oh. But yeah, we won't be able to make a huge amount of additional progress until we clean things up around the top side of the map. So I feel like I just lose track so easily of which ones I've done and which ones I have yet to do as far as these raised jungle corners go. I swear I did this before. Oops. But I clearly have not touched this at all because there's still like repeating tiles and whatnot. Okay. All right, now that I've concluded some of the distractions, we can continue tweaking this area up here. I'm mostly just providing a bit of backing to this area. All right. So what do I want to do with this area over here? You know, right now I'm thinking we could probably have a nice, quaint area up here where the... Assuming I can get this to work, which is kind of a big if, I'm realizing. Should work out okay. In case you were wondering why I had to terraform the map, shit like this is why. Again, being able to just select terrain and lock it would prevent this, but Can't do that. Now the obvious issue this poses is a lack of interactivity with the ramp over there, but that shouldn't be that big of a deal once I move it. And supply an auxiliary. Nice. So it's definitely a little different, but it what I like about this change is that it facilitates a bit more significance to the... Oh. I'm not sure if that's good or not. I don't think so. I think it's probably best saved. We should probably just do it that way. Yeah, that's more build space up there anyway, so that's probably fine. But yeah, so it facilitates a little bit extra significance to the swamp area over here. Unfortunately, we don't get... we don't get much elsewhere. Yet. There's just so much empty space over here right now, and over here, but we can fill it in later on. I'll probably end up, you know what, I can do this right now. Since it has occurred to me. Alright, so I like that this sort of leads up, and either you can keep following that straight line and go around, or you can go straight into it. So I think that that reinforces the idea better. Anyway, there's some update there. I'll throw a base up in that area. It's going to be challenging to fit everything that I want to fit in here, but them's the breaks. Trying to get that, like, jagged, unnatural look. Seems like I've got it. Okay. All right, I shall return momentarily. Go to use the bathroom. I have returned. I'm gonna seal this up and see how it looks. I can't wait until we have an actually different, visually distinct set of tiles for higher dirt. That'll be really nice. That's a lot of minerals. Guess the police think I'm so good at this that I should be illegal. Oh boy. The cacophony continues. $23, by the way. All right, there we go. We've done it. The best base of all time. Beautiful. There's so many buildings now. What's up, Mutas Dozen? How you doing, dude? How's life? I'm pretty good. I've also been equally busy, probably, if I had to guess. It's definitely been a busy couple of weeks. Just I guess all of August was pretty much uh, crazy hectic. But Hydra's going well. This Protoss campaign Deliverance we're working on is also going well. We've really changed the game. It's been so long since you've played it, you probably won't even recognize it, to be honest with you. It's pretty nuts. In terms of the sheer number of changes that happened. But I think it's been for the better. It was a really interesting experiment, and I think it paid off. So basically, I was doing a Big Boys Table podcast, as I do, with my good friend Iskatumesk, and I had told him about one of the changes that had recently happened to Hydra, where I reshaped a lot of things. Like I basically had reset the tech tree in very different ways, and the idea was that you'd have more flexibility with your early game strats and stuff. Um, it was a considerable change, but it wasn't as extreme in terms of the sheer number of changes as what would come later. Because in this podcast that I was having with him, I mentioned that one of the changes ended up being that, for example, siege mode would be researched by default. And my argumentation for it was, I mean, obviously there's a huge amount of rebalancing that happened to make that not completely broken in certain matchups or whatever. But the idea was, this is a core element of this unit. This unit is not used without siege mode, except until you, like, while you wait for siege mode to kick in. You use it to, like, defend against goon pushes or whatever. Like, that's the only usage you see in pro play. You don't ever see them used outside of siege mode, except to get to the point where they can go into siege mode. So it's all about playing around siege mode. Like, that's really what the unit is about. So why would you make it like this weird upgrade thing where you've got to get this, but you know, if you're going to use tanks, you're getting siege mode. There's not like a thought process of, I should get this if these things are true. It's like, if the first thing is true, I'm using this unit, then I'm going to get that. It's like Psystorm with High Templar. And so I had expressed this and how I wanted to go further with that kind of concept. And yeah, pretty much. If you're going to build a factory, you're going to use siege. So I expressed this to Mesk, and Mesk's response was, "Well, yeah, that's the case with all upgrades." And that kind of got me thinking. Like, he described them as fire and forget, where you just you get them, but it's not really about like, what do I do? Like, there's not really a whole lot of skill expression after you have them. You just have them. So like Marine range, you just have it. You know, like there's nothing about like, oh, this text tree structure gives it to you, or I get enhanced range under these circumstances and I've got to play around that. It's just you have that stuff. So what I decided was, all abilities would either be researched by default, or you would the abilities themselves would require a text structure. So like, in order to use the reworked version of Lockdown, which is actually a mine now, it's called the Lobotomy Mine, similar to Spider Mines. Ghosts can be trained well before you get a science facility, but you need science facility tech in order to use that ability. So if you build a science facility, your ghosts become much more enhanced. If you lose that science facility, your ghosts can't use that anymore. It's kind of like that. There's some other cases like that too. But I'm not 100% sure exactly how that works out. But like off the top of my head, I can't pick out any other immediate examples for Terran. But for example, like Plague is now benefits from that metastasis upgrade that made it spread on death, but it's locked behind the ultimate tech of the Zerg. So you need to get to the max tech in order to use that spell. Whereas otherwise you've got Swarm and Consume by default. So Swarm was default, but Consume was research, Plague was research. Now it's not about that, it's about like, this is an expression of your tech level. This is an expression of power based on your tech tree and what tier you're actually at. And the other thing was that we reworked a lot of stuff into more formal tiers. And we made it so that it's less about bio. So you can build a factory or a starport without needing anything. You just need a command center. The same requirement for barracks. You need a command center to build factory or starport. And once you have a factory, you can build an armory to upgrade your stuff. And once you have a starport, you can build a dry dock to upgrade your ships. And the change there is that now there's a set of tier 1 units for all of these matchups. Wraith and Dropship are available without any add-ons. Vulture and a new unit called the Southpaw are available without any add-ons at the factory. Marine and Medic are available without any add-ons at the barracks. And these are your tier 1 units. If you want to go higher than that, you build a tier 2 structure. The engineering bay is now a tier 2 structure. The academy is now unlocked by the barracks and upgrades infantry. So now you've got this whole thing where it's like a kind of a consistent tree or branch of the tree for each, like barracks for infantry or bio, right? And then you've got like mech is factory and air is starport. So you kind of have these branches that are distinct, but they all benefit from being enhanced by tier 2. So all of your add-ons require tier 2. So your machine shops, your salvo yards for new mech units, your control towers and physics labs. Well, your physics labs require science facility. There's a new add-on called the munitions bay that unlocks fighters or frigates or corvettes and stuff. So that's like what unlocks the Valkyrie and the Wyvern. And then the control tower unlocks the Azazel and the science vessel. And there's like a new add-on for the barracks that unlocks the Cyprian and the Firebat, and an add-on for the barracks that unlocks Shamans, and eventually a new unit that will get implemented that will be another healer type unit. That's the Medbay still. And then there's another add-on, the Covert Ops, obviously, for the Savant, which is a new specialist, and the Ghost. So the whole thrust of it is that we've really massively changed how the tech tree is expressed. And this is true for all other races as well. So it's a pretty big change. But the other thing is that there are no more upgrades for units. There's tiered upgrades like ship weapons and stuff like that. But there's no more marine range. There's no more medic energy. None of that. So you either have this behavior by default or you don't. And what this creates is like a very consistent expression of what or understanding. Like you as a player can conceptualize, I know what a Zergling does at all stages of the game. It doesn't matter what tech level they're at. I don't need to worry about them suddenly attacking much faster because of adrenal glands, or suddenly moving much faster because of metabolic boost. I know what that unit does at all stages of the game. The only thing that will be different is its precise damage values based on, or its carapace or whatever, like based on upgrades, right? Yeah, so like Hydra's gained movement speed by default. They have the upgraded movement speed, but they lose out on the range permanently. Dragoons just have the Dragoon range by default. Marines have Marine range by default. Zerglings have like a reduced version of metabolic boost and a reduced version of adrenal glands by default. But the adrenal glands is a little bit different. It's not just a flat attack speed increase. Every attack that they successfully land, I mean, it's impossible to miss now, but every attack that they land increases their attack speed, and that benefit will fall off after being out of combat for X amount of seconds. I think it's 2, so it's a pretty low timer. But the idea is that if you allow them to stick to you, if you don't kite backwards or if you don't retreat from Zerglings, they increase their DPS pretty considerably, and that's from the beginning of the game. It doesn't go all the way up to the same attack speed that Adrenal provided before. But I think it's like 6 attacks or something, and after 6 attacks, they start attacking significantly faster. And that's like the cap that they can be at. So if they're on your SCV line or something, they're on your worker line, they can really wreak havoc. That obviously is super useful against buildings as well. So they become much more dangerous if you allow them to persist on the same target. And disengaging them becomes much more useful and much more like encouraged, basically. So it's a lot more about like positioning and you can gate their efficacy by killing them before they get to you, or by disengaging from them with like some sort of slow onto them and then walking away or something like that. So it becomes a bit more positional. It becomes a bit more deep, you could say, a bit more about skill expression. than just having this upgrade by default. So it's definitely a lot to take in if you're coming from vanilla, or even if you're coming from an earlier version of Hydra. It's a lot of changes, right? But it's worked out pretty well thus far. Like, it's really exciting what you can do now. Like, just the idea that I can go in here and I can get Spawning Pool, Spire, Hydra Den first as Zerg is pretty cool, I think. Like, I'll go Hydra first in this particular case to show you. And obviously, like, balance is super precarious. We haven't tested any of this super aggressively, yada yada yada. But this is your command card at the beginning. You can get anything you like, and that kind of choice given to the player is very different than, you know, what you might expect by default. But I think it really helps the player make choices that are a bit more expressive of their playstyle. You may also have noticed there's a new structure called the Overlord Iris. This basically unlocks your tier 2 now. So I've separated out the idea of, for example, like a layer, hive, etc. don't actually unlock your tiers anymore. Instead, they unlock your they just increase production rates. So they increase like larva spawn rate. So they're still useful, but they are no longer like a mandate. So now I've got my Hydra. I'm going to run over there, you know, live up to this project's namesake. I mean, 2 Hydras have never really won a game, but just that you can go this route if you wanted to, I think is way better than needing a spawning pool for everything. Got him. Of course, it's taking me an agonizingly long time just to kill the workers, but that's okay. In fact, I'm not even sure if I have killed workers. Yeah, the +1 range he's got really executed me. Wow, he's got some men. So, you know, this is where I would decide, okay, I'm going to tech up, because I'm going to need some lurkers against what he has got. This would also be where I decide to actually use my camera hotkeys. Hey, but speaking of camera hotkeys, the same guy who put together the timer, Veek, you probably remember him, is responsible for providing us with up to, I think it's 8 camera hotkeys. So it's like, yeah, F1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. All right, we'll go layer. Oh, apparently that's the, this has the wrong requirement. I'll have to fix that. This guy probably already has some evolution, some academies as well, so I should probably get on my upgrades. Oh boy. Utterly executed, TBH. Hello? I may have gotten destroyed. I blame the lack of lurkers, TBH. But yeah, the idea that you can have that many is pretty cool. So I'll assign them all now so you can see what I'm saying. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Kind of unwieldy, but you get the idea. So you should be good in that kind of environment. We got some new units. In fact, I don't think you've seen the Paladin. It's pretty cool. Obviously, you won't be able to hear it, but a big part of it is the audio cue. But it has this ability. I think this ability requires science facility, if I'm not mistaken. I can test that by killing my science facility, I guess. Where is it? These are like the slow motherfuckers. These are like a heavy-duty artillery unit. So each attack is 20 or 10 missiles? Hold on. Might be 12. Yeah, it's 10. Now, before you might immediately think, oh yeah, that's way too many. But, well, the other cool thing about their ability is that it's at a different angle. It's like at a different pattern, so it almost like, it looks like a bullet hell. But their regular attack does not home in, and it deals friendly splash. So I think what I have to do for balance's sake is I have to you also don't want to waste an entire salvo on one dude, but you do more damage to yourself in that case. But I think I'll probably have to slow the speed at which the missiles launch during the ability. Or maybe I'll do that anyway, just in general. Because it is pretty fast. But it's obviously like a different kind of attack. And, you know. I like that it's kind of bullet helly. It's pretty cool to me. So, yeah. That's that. We have the Centaur. Nice flagship. Not really a flagship. It's supposed to be a destroyer class ship. I don't know. This may have been implemented by the time you... when you were still hanging around. I don't remember. They have this passive that allows them to launch a secondary weapon if at any target that's... When they acquire a target that's close enough, they will launch both missiles, or they'll use both missiles and their main cannon. Not sure if I'll keep the exact range. I feel like their range should probably be closer to... it should probably be like 8 range or something, so that half of that is used for the secondary weapon in theory. We also really slowed down the battlecruiser's turn radius, as you can see, which helps complement the fact that it has forecastle by default. So, and then we've got the Madrigal. The Madrigal is mostly, it's like a, it's meant to be like a more flexible tank. But its real moneymaker is with its tempo change ability, which slows its attack speed. But as you can see, the missile will stick to the target and then detonate. So if I attack this guy, he sort of blows up afterwards and it deals additional damage. So that's like the difference between the two weapon types. So basically it just switches between the two. And yeah, so the secondary missile, I think I forgot to actually slow it down enough. But the idea is that it's you can easily see it when it's on the way. So yeah, I think those are the. I mean, this is the Southpaw. The Southpaw has an interesting behavior associated with it. With enough shots, it slows down units to the point where they can't move anymore. It's kind of hard to tell when it's hitting smaller amounts of targets, but they can still attack. But obviously, if they're a melee target like this, it's pretty debilitating. Yeah. And then there's the Savant, which, aside from dealing more damage, it's normal damage instead of concussive. So aside from being more combat effective on an upfront level, they have some interesting abilities. They've got Power Siphon that lets them transfer energy from the target to any allied spellcasters near them. But their moneymaker is the Energy Decay ability, where they throw this debilitating status effect onto a spellcaster, and when that spellcaster casts a spell or spends energy in any capacity, they take damage equal to the energy expended. So I'll quickly fast forward so that I can generate some energy sufficient to use the ability. And if I were to cast it on some High Templar over here, and then I tag them once, they die when they try to cast Psystorm. Otherwise, they take almost all damage. Status effect doesn't last super long, but the idea is that it effectively gives you a window of opportunity where if they want to use an ability, they open themselves up to taking damage. So it's more about like the other player using it. You can also tag it with tag any cloaked unit, like a ghost or a wraith. You can tag it with that, and it will take damage as long as it remains cloaked. There's a bunch of different uses for it, but it's a fairly expensive ability, and it does require a science facility to use. So we have the Clarions involved now. Their AoE read or whatever is a little bit wacky to look at, but their ability is that they reduce the amount of shield damage taken, and all of the units that you see here affected. You'll notice that my shields are not dropping very heavily, despite the fact that I'm attacking it. Meanwhile, my shields over here are dropping for all of the units that are affected by the status effect. That's because this, as you can see here, it says disables the Clarion's weapon and links all shielded allies within 2 weapon range, distributing shield damage evenly across all of them. It's obviously not 2 weapon range. I think it's higher. It's like 4 or something, so the tooltip is inaccurate. But that was one of the more recent changes or additions for the Protoss. And so you can imagine flying one of these over a group of zealots as they take shots from siege tanks and distributing it much more evenly in that respect, so that the frontliners don't die. So all sorts of cool stuff like that. Scout's been reworked into the Panoptis. It attacks everything with its antimatter missiles, ground and air units alike. Its vitals didn't change, but its cost, I think, is slightly reduced still. Yeah, it looks like I dropped its mineral cost by 25. But they require a structure called the Stellar Icon in order to function. In order to be trained, rather. So it's a little bit different. Corsair's also got a similar price reduction of 25 gas because they now require an Astral Omen. The way that Protoss interacts with their tech tree is very different than the other races because, like, Zerg morphed this central nerve system structure, the Overlord Iris, that I was playing around with earlier. So the Zerg require this nerve center structure for their tech, and then their hatchery layer hive or whatever, you can evolve those independent of it. But the idea behind the Protoss is more that they have this ability to selectively unlock whatever they want in a sort of branching path. So this is what the Protoss command card looks like now, because we've got core structures, which is like Nexus, Pylon Cannon, Battery, Assimilator. And then we've got Templar, Robotic, and Stellar structures. The Templar structure has got the Gateway and everything related to the Gateway. So something that enables Archons and Augurs. We've got something that enables Hierophants. This is something that enables Dragoons, obviously, the Cyber Core. Stuff like that. In the Stellar section, we've got the Stargate, and then the Tier 1 of each branch of the Air Branch, Tier 2 of each Air Branch, Tier 3 of each Air Branch. And Tier 1, Tier 2 is all that exists right now for robotics, but we've got like Tier 1, Tier 2, and a bit of Tier 3 here. So, yeah, so like there's a ton of new shit for them. It doesn't take long for them to pick off things like carriers, as you can see, but I mean, it is explosive damage, so it's not going to be a cure-all against everything. And no, the Exemplar got a new graphic and everything, so it's definitely not still crashing games. So yeah, this is like a fighter. I think you were around when we were using these, the Aurora. You're probably around for the Panoptis change as well. Trying to think of what else. Oh yeah, the Empyrean. Or Empyrean, I think is how you're supposed to say it. So the Empyrean looks like a typical, like a somewhat normal cruiser at face value. You know? Just launches his 4 missiles per attack. He moves at an okay speed. His thrusters are obviously not actually made yet. That's why he's got these tiny scout ones. Now the key here happens when we take a look at the interactions between like enemy stuff, basically. So the Empyrean has an interesting missile behavior. Oops. I just realized well, I've got to suicide this unit now. That's the dry dock. Needed it for cloak. So as you can see, the missiles actually have a collision box, and when they are intercepted by another unit, they actually deal damage to that unit instead. So you can play catch the missile and intercept it. So it's a pretty big departure in that respect. It doesn't do friendly fire, and it doesn't intercept on allied units. But the idea is that if the Empyrean was targeting a specific unit, like if you're trying to use Empyreans to pick off somebody's Guardians or something, then you've got to like breach through them. Like they have really good DPS, but they have that positional element. Their DPS might not actually be that high, like as high as I would like it to be. It is normal, so you know, it's there. And then we have the Nathrocore, which is a flying a unit that's morphed from Zerglings. Oh yeah, and I don't know if you saw the Queen changes either. Those are pretty intense. So we can morph Nathricors, part in the animations. I haven't made them yet. They're from Zerglings. They're flyers, as you can see. And they're mostly, like, my main concern with them right now is that they might not actually be that useful, but they're meant to be like a fighter craft. Right now they're melee, and that might be reducing their usefulness pretty heavily. I actually want them to be kind of like fire bats, where they spray out this projectile, which would probably help them out a lot when dealing with, like, it would give them a little bit of AoE, but it would also crucially help them with dealing with stuff like bio, and obviously they're built for like harassment as well. But I wanted to give players who were like favoring air in with Zerg some sort of ability to modify like just how they go about that stuff. Provide I wonder why the shadows aren't working. I keep forgetting about that. Yeah, I don't want it to just be a harassment unit, but I also want it to like complement Mutalisks well. Like Mutalisks are built for harassment as well, but my idea is that compositionally, if you complement Mutalisks instead of Mutalisks being the bottom tier of air units, now we have something that we can mess around with, right? Like now we can go somewhere with that, which I like. So anyway, we also have Iroliths. Iroliths have this endomorphic accelerant passive, and they also have a clearly. This guy's got a messed up animation for some reason. There we go. We fixed it. But Iroliths double the regeneration rate of resources within 7 range. So you can tell why that would be useful. Now, Othsteleths are a little bit different as well. They're a little bit large, as you can see. But in addition to the passive for resource regeneration, they increase the morph rate of eggs. So this could be eggs from larvae, or it could be eggs from, say, you're trying to morph units on the front lines. So we'll compare that to over here, which should be safely removed. Hold on, I'll cancel this and then we'll just morph them at the same time. As you can see, we are jumping ahead quite a bit over here on this one. So that's a bit more of a positional thing. Obviously, it provides double the control of an overlord, so it has some benefits there. And yeah, the slowpoke took a long fucking time to morph compared to these guys. So you can imagine why you might want some of these. Like if we take all the larvae here and we morph them into Zerglings, you're going to notice that 2 of the sets of larvae morph much faster. Just by virtue of having this giant whale nearby. You can also load up a lot more units, but unfortunately the array of units inside transports is only a size of 8, even though in theory we could have up to 254 units inside a transport if we wanted to mod it that way. So we're going to have to change that. But it does work for picking up like 1 million ultras, so it still works in that respect. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a nice little recap of where we've been. There's plenty more changes I didn't cover there, but hopefully it made some sense to you. Oh shit, I forgot I saw some of this. Oh, yeah. You could say that again. Very different. So that's what I've been up to. For lack of a better term, that's what's been going on. What about you? What's been going on with you that you've been so busy? Big changes in your life? Crazy work hours? A little bit of home improvement. Never hurt anybody until shit starts falling on people's heads by accident, but you know, who's counting those? Have you been keeping regular with your streams, or did those kind of fall out by the wayside? Oh, there you go. Still getting the hours in. That's pretty much me as well. Like I've been trying to make sure that I'm doing this streaming, mod streaming stuff at regular times, or at the very least like on a regular schedule. Thankfully, I have not broken my streak, which feels pretty good. We passed 300 recently because 3. A hundred threes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that does feel pretty good. Knowing that we're closing in on that year-long streak, just as I wanted. Pretty good. Computer end simulation. I'll hit a year and we'll see what happens. I've been thinking I might not continue it, but I don't fucking know. It's impossible to say without, like, you know, it really depends on what happens between then and now. It's all obviously, like, as Dark Menson points out in the YouTube chat, simulation willing. Assuming something insane doesn't happen in between then and now. We'll actually complete the streak. Get all the way to a year. But at the same time, I mean, it's an accomplishment really no matter what. So. Vindication in its own right. Not as sweet as if I had also been able to, like, release an epic, you know, series of campaigns or something, but I'll have one done in some state of completion by the end of all this, so that's going to count for something. This is way too straight. So how you doing, Dirk Metzen? Man Metzen. Oh yeah, Mutas, doesn't I forgot the actual, like, closing out point or whatever after we're done with the development of this campaign, at least after this long map crap event is over. The plan is to jump ahead and start working on our own engine so that we can move Hydra over to that. Which is obviously going to be quite the challenge. But that'll be its own insane streak, I'm sure. We'll finally be able to do what we've always dreamed of. Making content without lard holding us back. No, we're not doing it in Rust. Get out of here. Fuck that. I haven't opened that up in a month. At least. Yeah, I was just showing off Fast Hydra build to Muta's Dozen. But I got destroyed by Marine Spam. Because I was playing a little sloppy. The AI is definitely by no means perfect, but at least they still stop me from being a complete buffoon. Although I did notice that I should fix that, actually. The Lurker Den says it requires the Overlord Iris, but it doesn't. It requires something else, so I'll fix that. I mean, this almost seems like I did that deliberately, so... I don't know why that was the case. Alright. Just wait for this program to start responding again. It's gonna be a while, apparently. There's also some other weird issues, like the Empyrean not actually having a missile weapon name. There you go. Well, I think you still need a pretty early expansion, but you don't need Zerglings because you have access to Lurkers. I mean, Hydras. I think you need at least 2 tech structures for unit generation. You probably almost always need that. If it's like a 1v1 or a case where everybody has like one opponent that can attack them and nobody's positioned in a safe area. Like, sort of like in this particular case, we've got like the frontline Protoss and the backline Protoss, and here we've got frontline Zerg and backline Zerg. In such a case, the backline player could go for a more tech risky build where they go like Spire, Overlord Iris, Gorgolith Apiary or something crazy. I don't know. If they wanted to rush a tier 2 unit without getting like a spawning pool or something. But you actually end up getting a decent number of extra resources, particularly with hatcheries costing 25 less minerals. It does encourage you to not only build more hatcheries, but also like you have the money to eventually get a spawning pool. So really it's more about the opening build, how that figures into where you want to go, and if you're going to make like a gambit where you start with a spire instead of a spawning pool, that's going to push you back a lot of gas. You're probably going to be floating that money anyway, so you should expand. And maybe if you really are dead, like hell bent on not getting a pool or a Hydra Den first, because those are the more economic options, maybe you take a fast third and you rely on Sunkens or something. Or you put those excess minerals just into Sunkens. I don't know. Like, there's definitely ways that you can peel off defense because the Sunken and Spores only need hatchery now, so, or they don't need anything, I think. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is if any of the other players, be the AI or not, go for early aggression in terms of unit counts instead of being as tech aggressive as you obviously are at a disadvantage in terms of number of units. That's always been the case in StarCraft. It's just more apparent in, given Hydra's new changes. But how are you liking stuff overall? Like, what's your impression of the feel of it? Is it something you definitely need more time to make a determination for, or like how does it compare to older versions of Hydra and Brood War itself? Oh. Oh no, I was asking. Well, after I was busy talking about everything, I was asking how you felt about the changes, if you had, if you've had enough experience thus far, playing around with it to make a determination as to whether or not you like the changes or not. Like, in your opinion, how does it compare to older builds of Hydra, like other RTS games, vanilla StarCraft itself? All right, with any luck, that will keep things decently open. Ruh-roh. Is that real? How the fuck? Wow. That's real, all right. All right, we'll try that again. Oh, yeah, I forgot if I want to pre-place add-ons, I've got to place the add-on and then create a location where I want to place the structure and then use a trigger to make that. That's so fucking dumb. I could probably use create unit, but it's pretty dumb anyway. All right. We've done a lot of work today. I'm happy about that. I'm going to call it here, I think. Can't believe it's almost been 4 hours. That's nuts. So, all in all, pretty good progress on this map. Definitely feel a lot better about some of the areas that I was a little bit more iffy on, like this goofy Muta's Dozen base over here. This mineral area definitely feels a lot better than it used to. I like the changes over here north of Deimos. I like the bottom right area. Feels pretty good. Probably will populate some more trees in the swamp and around the swamps. But map looks like it's coming along. I like this base even though it's kind of tight. I might end up expanding more of it around, but we'll see. And I like Eric's new location. Sort of mirrors the like Tauros Salamir duo with Eric and Githroki there. Kind of cool. Terrans might be a little too close to Githroki in that sense, particularly since Githroki could, in theory, just walk over there with an Overlord and scout them. So that base will probably move, but I think that the number of pre-placed things that they have is probably fine, given that they are all by themselves and 6 players on the map that are all hostile to them. And this is about as much as I would expect the AI to start out with, given that they're trying to remain relatively undetected. So this will probably be their natural, and we'll move their starting location to somewhere over here maybe or something. Oh, okay. You talk about kiting in here. We actually do have a slightly updated version since the last time I've showed it off on stream. But the problem with it is it's going to benefit Protoss with Dragoons, Terran with Vultures and Marines and stuff way more than it benefits Zerg. So, I mean, I guess with Mutas and with Hydras and stuff, they will still benefit from it. But Zerglings will actually lose some effectiveness, I think. But the Zerg AI being fragile is something that I am aware of, and since Zerg are a huge pivotal part of like fighting Zerg is a huge pivotal part of Deliverance, we're going to be looking into ways to make them better, and I'm sure that the progress that we make in Deliverance's AI will translate to much better performance for Hydra's melee AI as well. I agree with the idea that like upgrades, especially upgrades that felt critical, or race searches that felt critical, like siege mode or whatever. Flooding A's code with this shit. Yeah, I'm sure we could get some sort of management there where if they are near their static defense, they will sort of like they'll poke out a little bit, and then they'll like retreat back once attacked or something, and wait until the enemy comes closer within the range of the static defense. There's probably a way to do that. Yeah, but researching like super important or like core aspects of the identity felt so dumb. So Yeah, High Templar only being able to be turned into Archons by default is pretty stupid. I like the fact that they can turn into Archons because it helps them find utility even when they have no energy left, but it's still pretty dumb. I don't think Dark Metzen is too interested in learning Rust, just so you know. But yeah, if you feel like learning Rust and you want to help out, you can always explore that idea there. I guess you could take a look at iQuery's implementation, but it seems kind of unrealistic considering how stupid Rust is. iQuery is just desperate to have another man against Rust, and it's not happening, dude. Nobody likes that language. Transfer it to C++ or bust. Rust, more like bust. Now we're just going to move on to our own engine anyway, so. The most exciting aspect of the whole thing to me is the fact that, like, soon we just won't be as limited. Like, it just won't be as much of a big deal. We'll just have our own shit, you know? So. I'm looking forward to that. So, yeah. Anyway, like I was saying earlier, things are definitely shaping up. Yeah, there you go. That's my kind of attitude. The map's coming along. I'll be badgering DF for potential terrain updates and whatnot. I haven't checked all of the latest commit. Listen, I don't want to look at it. What even is this? Reasonable. Oh my god. Don't make me look at it. No. Imagine not being able to just copy and paste a new unit into existence. Dude, that's going to be so epic when we copy and paste a Marine, or actually a Firebat. The first unit we add to the new engine will be Ahmed, obviously. So after that, when we copy and paste 1,000 Ahmeds, and they're all called Ahmed clones, except for the 69th entry, which is Ahmed, that will be the real, like, catharsis for all of the suffering that we've had. I can't wait. But yeah, hopefully you have some idea about what's going on with the pointer corruption. I don't know what that might be. But I'm going for now. DM me the details if you got any. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Thanks for your write-up, Kian. Appreciate it. Always nice to know what you think, what people think who've been playing this stuff for a while now. And we'll have some more updates for you soon, I'm sure. So stay tuned for that. See you guys tomorrow for another stream where I'll get even more work done on this map. Bye.